Recently, we had a few reveals for new Star Wars Black Series figures releasing in 2026, including a new Darth Vader figure from Obi-Wan Kenobi, some new Clone Wars characters like Quinlan Voss, and a Valentine's Day Ewok. But today, I'm going to make a few more predictions for the rest of the year on this video today. My first point of discussion is new releases for Star Wars, including the Mandalorian and Grogu film, which is hoping to release in 2026 for May, the second series of Ahsoka, and a brand new animated series called Maul Shadow Lord. We'll start with Mandalorian and Grogu since it's the big ticket thing for Star Wars this year, and I'm sure there's going to be a huge sort of merchandise push with maybe a Force Friday style event, especially considering this is the return to cinemas for Star Wars, and with the Black Series essentially being the flagship Star Wars action figure line, we're definitely going to be seeing some figures for Mando and Grogu. As to what we'll do, I'm guessing there's going to be a Mando and Grogu ones, shock horror, but for more interesting predictions, from the little we know about the film, it has a opening on sort of a snowy mountain ridge with some AT-ATs. So I'm guessing there's going to be snowtroopers, and we could get a re-release of the snowtrooper figure and even the AT-AT driver figure, since those are two very expensive figures, or well, relatively expensive. And we know that Zeb from Star Wars Rebels is going to be appearing like he did in the third series in the Mandalorian TV series in his sort of pilot outfit. So that could be maybe a deluxe figure. So another potential one there. But as for other stuff, it's probably going to be mostly just characters from the film, which we don't have a lot of information on. Maybe Sigourney Weaver's character is going to get a figure. Who knows? But there's definitely going to be a lot of them. Maybe some re-releases that tie into the film. But that might mean the Mandalorian series, since there's always new figures releasing for them, that might get put on the back burner, or they might just release more of them and less from the new film at the moment. But I think there's going to be a lot of new film releases. Then we get to the second series of Ahsoka, which, from the little that we know, since there's been barely any shots, we might just get new Ahsoka, new Sabine, new Ezra, new Hera. Can't remember off the top of my head if Hera got a new Black Series figure for Ahsoka, but if she didn't, then that would be a perfect time. Maybe we'll get a new figure for Baylan Skoll, since he's got a new actor. Unfortunately, Ray Stevenson died. And new throne. Just, it's going to be a lot of what we got with the Ahsoka Black Series figures since 2023. They're keeping doing them in smaller bursts, but I still think it'll mainly be similar to them. And then finally, to me, the most interesting project for this year of Star Wars is Maul Shadow Lord, where we don't really know anything other than it's about Darth Maul. And there has been a Darth Maul figure that's sort of a repack for the vintage collection, but still under Maul Shadow Lord. So definitely expect a Darth Maul figure, shock horror again. And other than that, I really don't have many guesses, but I'm assuming there's going to be a few figures, maybe, sort of like they do with the Clone Wars or the Bad Batch, where they do just a few. Next point of discussion is anniversaries. Now, the Black Series has shown time and again that they love to do sort of anniversary or celebration figures. This year, the big one's going to be 10th anniversary of Rogue One, and I'm not sure what to expect, since they're still carrying on with the 2021 sort of packaging style with the color coordinated series, essentially, in the main line, and all the Rogue One cast have already been done, and Krennic's been re-released with Andor. So I'm not really sure what we're going to get, but I'm imagining there may be some sort of like special multi pack with the characters. I'm like a 6-pack with all the main 6 Rogue One members would be really cool, but I'm assuming there'll be maybe an Admiral Raddus figure. That could be a fun, interesting idea. Have another Fishman or Mon Calamari, as they're actually called. And it might be time to get an original trilogy style Mon Mothma, since we don't have that. And then finally, maybe Bail Organa. Finally, since I'm surprised they still haven't done him as a figure. He's a pretty prominent part of Star Wars, and they still haven't done him. But it's a bit hard to guess. I'm assuming they're not going to do like a retro style packaging, since the retro style packaging would be the 2016 Rogue One packaging, which isn't nostalgic in any way. I don't know, but I mean that could be cool, but it's just not like the vintage kind of Star Wars packaging, and even the more Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace ones. But I'm assuming it's just going to be some re-releases or some brand new figures. I mean, they could maybe re-release the Edu or Jedi versions of Cassian and Jin. You know, they had a Jin Erso on Edu with sort of the poncho raincoat, and then Cassian with his blue coat. Those weren't re-released in 2021, so we could see them. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. They didn't do anything for the 10 years of The Force Awakens, but they were also preoccupied with Revenge of the Sith, unfortunately. And Rogue One is still pretty beloved. You know, people don't tend to look at The Force Awakens too much anymore. I still think it's a fine film, but it's not as celebrated or discussed as Rogue One is, which a lot of people still tend to like. But on the topic of Rogue One and like Rogue One adjacent stuff, there's probably going to be more Andor figures as well to sort of celebrate it. They've proven they'll do more figures from Andor after its release during 2023 and 2024. And with still so many characters missing, like Wilman, Claire, and especially Cyril. Cyril should have been released by now. Those are all characters that they could do just sort of a Rogue One Andor, that sort of time frame feel for that 10 years. So I'm assuming they'll do that. And maybe some other ones, but as long as they do all the major characters, because Andor's got a lot of like ensemble cast members who haven't been done, and it would be nice to see all of them, especially Cyril, since he's such a major character in both series 1 and 2, and they still haven't done him. But it could be a while. They didn't do a Dedra until last year, so who knows. On the topic of re-releases, I think it's likely that we get some more figures based on The Empire Strikes Back. Last year, Hasbro had a lot of new A New Hope releases with the new versions of Luke, Han, Leia, Chewie, as well as the new Sand Trooper. And then before that, we had some new Return of the Jedi figures and some re-releases to coincide with that year's 40th anniversary. Combined with that knowledge and the fact that we haven't had that many Empire figures, only about 4, whereas New Hope's had about 12, and then I don't know how many Return of the Jedi's had, but off my head, but I know it's quite a lot more than Empire. So I'm assuming they'll do some sort of re-releases. The Snowtrooper and AT-AT driver that I mentioned earlier with Mando and Grogu, they would probably fall into that, but they'll do them with Mando and Grogu. As for just Empire figures, I'm imagining they'll do or re-release Lando, since we haven't had him for a while, probably since they did Empire 40-year figures. Some more new figures could be Lobot. He'd be an interesting one to have. It's a bit different. I'm not sure how or if they've done an Admiral Ozzel, but that could be a bit of a deep cut random one to do. So just other ones like the different versions of Leia. Maybe a Bespin Leia could be a cool new figure, but maybe it'll just be just re-releases or updating older figures from Empire, less so new figures. Then we'll just move on to some more general stuff like I think they're going to keep the same packaging style that they have. They've recently just updated it, so why would they get rid of it? Um, it'll just be there'll be some holiday and Halloween figures and maybe another Valentine's Day figure since they're doing that now for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but there are just some miscellaneous sort of updates and just general things that are likely to happen since they happen every year. But something more like bigger that I think they might do is another HasLab for Black Series. This is not super likely, but I think that they could do another lightsaber based on Darth Maul's double-bladed lightsaber, since they've got Maul Shadow Lord coming out, and it could be a good sort of tie-in product. I mean, the Reaver lightsaber failed pretty hardly, but Darth Maul's a lot more recognisable and popular. I think that's pretty uncontroversial to say, but maybe they won't do it because of how poorly that Reaver one went. But I think maybe they would be a bit braver this time and go for the Maul lightsaber. It could be a nice double bladed to have, and I think it's quite a likely one people would want to own. So potential for a HasLab there, but it depends. I mean, they just come off the Tron HasLab, and that's not done great. So they might want to go for more safe bets in terms of HasLab, but still possible. And with that, we've come to the end. Leave a comment down below about what you're predicting for next year in terms of Black Series, or what you would like to see, depending on the likeliness of it. And hopefully you are alright and enjoy next year's Black Series figures, whatever they end up being. So, yeah, have fun and take care.